For me, it's getting annoyed at something. It's if something, pretty much begins with me just going, why do people do this? And it just starts off as a basic aggravation, and then I catch myself and go, oh, there's something there. Like I always say that I think everybody does the same thing the comic does, but the difference is we write it down, and then I just walk around mumbling to myself for like 2 or 3 days until I have more to it, where I can find somewhere to go with it. So, yeah, that's basically it. It starts with getting annoyed.
Usually, it happens fairly, and often that's one way when I'm writing, like I'm trying to write. The other way is when I'm hanging out with my friends, and we're just kind of riffing and cracking jokes, and oftentimes just out of conversation, a subject matter will pop up, and I'll riff on that, and it'll be perfect, just what I said, just because I'm trying to make my friends laugh. And that's naturally how that happens. And if that happens, then I jot the premise down, and then I'll save it and try to work on it later. But I like that. That's kind of an organic way. And then sometimes I will take a half-formed idea, and I'll take it up on stage, and I'll do something that's called writing on stage. It's where you kind of just go and try to wing it in the moment. Something that Franklin Ajay does. I think Tig Notaro does it as well, a lot too. Not saying I'm anywhere near that level, but that's how a lot of my things, sometimes I'll come up with jokes in the moment on stage. And so I record every set, so that way if there's anything like a gem in there that I forgot.
You have to make sure that what you have isn't just a premise, because a lot of times, like you're like, that's great, that's gonna kill, and then right when you say it on stage, right in the middle of it, you went, oh shit, this is just a premise. I forgot to write a punchline. So that'll happen. Yeah. So there's that. There's not just that, but it's also boiling it down, because when you come up with something, the biggest thing is you want to expand on it, and you think everything is gold. And then what I try and do is every joke I have starts out as like 5 to 6 minutes, and then I try and boil it down as close to 30 seconds as I can, because honestly, I think it's a temptation to over-explain things. I think that's something new comics make a huge mistake of, is they'll like explain things that don't need to be explained in their joke, like, oh, so I was on Facebook. Do you guys have Facebook? Does anyone know what Facebook is? Facebook's a social media site where you can post pictures and statuses, and a lot of people are on it, and it's your name, you have a profile, and like by the time they're done with that, people are like, I know what Facebook is, asshole, and I already don't like your joke, and you've lost me. So by the time they get to their punchline, people are like, huh? That sucked. So I try and boil it down. If there's any word that I can eliminate that wouldn't ruin the joke, I cut it out, whatever it is.
Finally, I'm at 8 years in, I'm finally comfortable doing long amounts of time and getting ready to do bigger shows where I'm showcasing and shit like that. Because I was just a very hard critic on myself, you know what I mean? And I'm a hard critic on comedy, you know what I mean? I can't watch someone going up there talking about their girlfriends or having a poorly formed opinion on politics. You know what I mean? It's like, save that shit, you know, for years from now when you're really good at that. Just tell a fucking joke.
Well, I've gotten to a place where I can tell that it was going somewhere. Like I can tell people were with me and it dropped off, and I can also tell when people are like, no. So, you know, I'll work it like probably 4 times, and I'll see if there's anything I can add to it or rearrange. But if I really think there's something there, but I just haven't really finished it yet, I've got like a junkyard of like jokes that I keep for scrap, like for spare parts, like, because that's really valuable. Because once in a while, I'll have a joke from like a year ago that just never made it. It never got a reaction. I thought it was great, and then like a year or 2 later, I'll be writing a new joke, and I'll be like, oh my god, I can use that thing from before. So it's like finding a radiator hose from a '96 Plymouth Duster or something, and it's like I'm not gonna build a new Plymouth Duster, but I'll keep this in my garage here, and all of a sudden someone's like, we need a radiator hose for a Plymouth Duster. Like, I got the thing. So I'll keep those around, and I'll scrap them. I'll scrap those jokes for parts later on, like just for tags or something.
I try to write as unique and original as I possibly can, because that way I know there's no one, there's no way this joke could be anywhere near something that Mitch Hedberg said or something that David Tell said. Even though those are guys I look to for inspiration, it's like you have to just take that and then do your own thing with it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I never know until I go up and I do it. And sometimes the joke hits automatically. I'm like, great, I was right. and then sometimes it needs some work, and so many times there's just shit that I've just forgotten about, and I have a lot of notes that I need to go back and revisit. But you never know till you try it. A lot of people ask me, hey, do you think this joke's funny? And I'm like, you can tell me it, but I'm not going to laugh. The only way to do it is to get up in front of people on a microphone and say it.
I do a joke about billionaires killing themselves and they lose all their money, and then how when I read about that in the paper, I realized their life when they were broke before they killed themselves was a lot like my life now. And when I wrote that joke, I'd written a joke about a year earlier about nightmares and how I dreamed I was in a mansion, woke up and had to go back to my cubicle, and I was like, you realize when that happens in real life, people kill themselves over it? And then it never worked, so I kept it around for parts. And then when I was writing that joke, I was like, oh my God, that tag will work. That's my punchline. That's this whole other thing. That's what it was missing. So that's how it took 2 years, but it finally worked. Yeah.
There's a joke I'm doing now where I read these articles from Women's Health magazine. I read the article and I thought about how absurd it was. And then I thought of just picking a couple of them out and then kind of riffing on them or dissecting them. I mean, the riffs have become now a part of the skeleton. It's not riffing anymore, though I tried to make it appear to be. So, and that one's still actually under construction. There is still, just like that one could actually stretch into like 5 minutes if I tried to make it. So I'm still working on that because I thought of, like, the whole first 2 or 3 minutes of the bit are strong and it has rhythm, but then I end really weak. And like I was trying to think of a new way to close it.
You're still trying to find that X factor.
Well, no, and then I figured out to, instead of close it, to keep going and then close it later. So I have written, where I would normally close the joke and end it, I've written like an additional 2 to 3 minutes that extends from that. It's a very... I would imagine that bit is maybe a few months away from being polished and finished, you know what I mean? But that's a good example. Like I saw that online, was reading it, wrote it down, and I've been performing it over the past 3 months, I think, and it's been very consistent. Plus I have references people can recognize, Law and Order, Women's Health magazine. So that's probably the best example.